You're watching Saturday Anime on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Greetings, this is Reverend Paul, and this is Raw. Today, we are going to continue talking about Chainsaw Man. Specifically, we are going to talk about the second episode of the Chainsaw Man anime. Now, in the first episode of Chainsaw Man, we saw Denji turn into Chainsaw Man, and then he killed this entire warehouse full of devils. He killed the head zombie devil, and after Denji is essentially done with his zombie killing spree, he is found by Makima. And Makima is a pretty important public safety devil hunter. And Makima basically looks at Denji and says, you want to know what? You smell like a devil, but you also smell like a human, and you seem like a good dude, so why don't you come and work for me? So Makima takes Denji, and she brings him to like this udon hot dog stand. And while they're at the udon hot dog stand, Makima basically tells Denji, you're going to be my dog, and you're going to do everything I tell you to. And Denji's like, well, that sounds pretty awesome for me. So Denji agrees to work for Makima's public safety devil hunter organization. And Makima tells Denji his condition, merging with the devil, is very rare. In fact, it's a condition so rare they don't have a name for it. But I really do feel like when Makima says the condition is rare, it should be rare in quotation marks, because it's one of those things of like, sure, I guess there aren't a lot of like human devil hybrids, but this is gonna be one of those instances where like there may not be a lot of them, but every single one of them is gonna show up in this city. Katana Man shows up in the opening credits, for God's sakes. How rare can this condition be? Makima brings Denji back to her office, and when they get to Makima's office, she teams Denji up with this dude named Aki Hayakawa. And Aki Hayakawa is kind of like the polar opposite of Denji. He's a very reserved dude, and Makima tells Hayakawa to show Denji the ropes. And Hayakawa proceeds to show Denji the ropes by kicking the shit out of him and telling him like, look, you don't have what it takes to be a devil hunter, so you gotta like give up and get the fuck out of here. But what Aki Hayakawa does not understand is that even though Denji does not look like much, he has strength of will. And even though Aki Hayakawa is probably a all-around better fighter than Denji, Denji has a superior fighting technique, and he beats Hayakawa by kicking him repeatedly in the nuts. And I'm sure there are people out there that feel like this is a cheap technique, and Denji, the hero of this story, should not be resorting to such a thing. But need I remind you, I believe it was Bruce Lee who said, you gotta do anything you could do to beat a motherfucker in a fight. And if that means beating the shit out of a dude's nuts, that's what you do. These are not my words. These are the words of Bruce Lee. Okay, maybe they're not, but that's not the point. The point is, Denji wins this fight. So Denji and Hayakawa go back to Makima, and Makima is very pleased to see that the two of these dudes are getting along so well. And Makima tells Denji that he has to move in with Hayakawa, and Makima also makes it very clear. Denji is not just an employee, he's kind of like the property of the public safety devil hunters. If he disobeys any order, because he's also a devil, Makima has the legal right to kill him. And Denji's like, wow, I thought Makima was cool, but now she seems kind of fucked up. And Hayakawa's like, dude, trust me, she's cool, I owe her my life. So Denji goes to Hayakawa's house and he crashes there. Then the next day, Denji and Hayakawa are sent on a mission where they have to kill a fiend. Now, what a fiend is a devil that has taken over a human corpse. And fiends are easily identified by the fact that they all have weird shaped heads. So Denji and Hayakawa go to this fiend's house, and he's this fucking weird looking dude with pincers sticking out of his mouth. And Hayakawa is like, okay, Denji, let's see this fucking crazy power you have and kill this dude. And Denji's like, yeah, dude, I don't even need to use my power. So he just cuts off this monster's head. And Hayakawa's like, you suck, Denji, because you want to be friends with devils, and I hate devils because devils killed my family and shit. And so I don't trust you and stuff. So Hayakawa bounces out of there, and Denji is alone in the apartment. And in this scene, we learn how good of a dude Denji really is, because not only did he kill this poor man who has turned into this fiend, Denji killed this man in a painless, humane manner. And even though he was a devil, Denji showed him the same dignity as a man. He also proved that he cares about great literature, because another reason why he did not want to kill this dude in his Chainsaw Man form, because when you kill a fiend with a chainsaw, it produces a lot of blood, and Denji did not want to ruin this awesome collection of JAV magazines that this guy had. Denji also realizes that he needs a cause to keep him fighting. Hayakawa's cause is to get revenge for the murder of his parents. And Denji figures the police outside, their cause to fight the devils is probably to protect their family. So Denji asks himself, what cause can he fight for? What is a cause he can believe in, and what is a cause that he would die for? And Denji decides in that room that he will fight for the cause of touching boobs. And it is a cause, no pun intended, that I feel like does not get enough support. If there's one important cause I feel like I can get behind, it's making sure that people have more boob awareness. So Denji and Hayakawa go back to Makima's office, and Makima said, hey, you wanna know what, Denji? Since you did such a good job teaming up with Hayakawa, I'm gonna team you up with this new devil hunter who is a fiend named Power. At first, Denji is kind of bummed out that he has to team up with Power, but then he realizes Power has boobs, and he's like, yeah, Power will totally make a great partner. And so Denji and Power go off into the city in search of fun and meaning, and more adventures to come in the next episode. The first episode of Chainsaw Man started off slow and then built its way to a climactic action set piece. And even though this episode has some great violent high spots, for the most part, this episode is a low-key affair. The action in this episode is kept to a minimum, and this episode is more about developing the characters and establishing their relationships. The first episode of Chainsaw Man was a near-perfect adaptation of the first chapter of the manga, and this second episode of Chainsaw Man adapts chapters 2 to the first couple of pages of chapter 5. However, Chainsaw Man episode 2 does not adapt the source material as faithfully as episode 1. The anime omits a action sequence from the manga at the beginning of episode 2 when Denji and Makima are at the udon stand. In the manga, there is a sequence where Makima sends Denji on a little quest to kill the muscle devil, and it's a very cool action sequence that gives us a little bit more insight into the dynamic between Makima and Denji. In the manga, Denji was faced with this moral quandary where when he came across the muscle devil, it seemed at first as if the muscle devil befriended a little girl, and Denji was reminded of his relationship with Pochita. Now this turns out to be a whole ruse, and the muscle devil is just possessing the girl, so Denji just kills the fuck out of the muscle devil. But for a brief second in the manga, Denji was questioning the intentions of Makima, and even though this sequence is missing from the anime still manages to express the idea in the dialogue Denji and Makima have at the udon stand and in the earlier scene in the car. The anime also gives us this shot in Makima's office where she has a painting of the demon Alecchino from Dante's Divine Comedy. Is it weird for somebody to hang that in their office? I don't know. I guess it could be a normal thing. Or not. So even though the anime differs slightly from the manga, it still successfully conveys the dynamic between Makima and Denji, where Denji is not completely sure if he should trust her or not. This episode also establishes the three main trio of characters, Denji, Aki, and Power. Denji is kind of like a horny everyman who is motivated by wanting to touch boobs, and Hayakawa serves as Denji's foil, where he is more straight-laced and by the book. But of course, the coolest of the trio is Power. Power is a fiend. She is all id. She is completely impulsive and just does the first thing that pops in her head. And the more I think of it, Power is the foil to Hayakawa, because if Hayakawa is order, then Power is chaos. Even though this episode is Chainsaw Man-less, it has a great power sequence when Power comes down and smashes the fuck out of this cucumber devil. That is fucking awesome. And somebody pointed out in the comments of the last Chainsaw Man video, even though Power is cute, she's kind of gross. She doesn't bathe. She has really bad bathroom etiquette. She's always sniffing her fingers. She can be pretty disgusting at times, but I feel like that is part of her fiendish charm. Even though the second episode of Chainsaw Man doesn't have as much action as the first episode, I still think it's a very good episode because it does a good job of setting up the characters. It does a good job in setting up this world, which means in episode 3, we can finally move on from this setup phase and we can get into the real meat of Chainsaw Man.